Today on the Bandrew Says podcast, we'll be briefly discussing Twitch forming a safety advisory board, we'll be answering another OBS audio question, and a whole lot more, so go ahead and stick around. This last week, Twitch announced that they are forming something called the Safety Advisory Council. If you stream on Twitch or if you follow streamer news, it's no secret that Twitch's rules are vague, and the enforcement of those vague rules is unbalanced, to say the least. And here is what Twitch said about this new council in a blog post. The Safety Advisory Council will inform and guide decisions made at Twitch by contributing their experience, expertise, and belief in Twitch's mission of empowering communities to create together. The council will advise on a number of topics, including drafting new policies and policy updates, developing products and features to improve safety and moderation, promoting healthy streaming and work-life balance habits, protecting the interests of marginalized groups, identifying emerging trends that could impact the Twitch experience. And of course, there is additional information that I have left out, but I will include the link to the blog post if you want to read a little bit more. The council is made up of not only experts in the field of online harassment and moderation, but luckily they are also including a set of actual streamers on Twitch from different communities. So I think that will bring some good insight and some good representation of actual users of Twitch to the development of the tools that are used by people who stream on Twitch. I don't know if this is going to be a good or a bad thing. We will have to wait and see what kind of changes are made to the policies and the enforcement of those policies. But if you're a streamer on Twitch, all the advice that I can offer you is to make sure to watch your email and your notifications closely, because I imagine we will see some kind of update to Twitch's streaming policies about what is allowed, what is unallowed, and you want to make sure that you are abiding by that and that you are not violating the new policies, because we don't want you to get banned. But again, I will go ahead and link the blog post in the show notes because that's all the information we have. Next, very short piece of news, Apple released Logic Pro 10.5. The huge updates in this new version of Logic Pro are adding a new sampling instrument and adding live looping features. And I have used their old sampling instrument, the EXS24, and to put it bluntly, it was kind of a nightmare to use. It wasn't the most intuitive thing. It was not very feature-rich. It was very limited in what it was able to do. You had to jerry-rig it to accomplish a lot of stuff. The new sampling instrument seems absolutely insane. You're able to change the actual attack, release, decay of each individual sample. You can map them to all of the keys. Really cool stuff there. But this is not going to be a big update for podcasters or voiceover artists. This is mainly for musicians, and not even for all musicians. This really seems focused on DJs and people who like sampling stuff. It's not going to be a big update if you do a lot of guitar. For somebody like me, not going to be a huge update, but it's really cool that Logic is still updating the software a decade after they released it. I bought this thing 7 years ago, and I'm still getting regular updates that are huge, and you don't have to buy a new license every single year. It's pretty incredible. So good on you, Apple, for continuing to support this software. It's really cool that you're doing that. And I will link the blog post and news announcement in the description. And why was that hard to say? In the show notes and episode notes and description. Now let's talk about what I have been testing. You have been listening to it for this last month. This episode concludes the run of the Manley reference Cardioid, one of the holy grail microphones, a microphone that people fawn over, that they adore, that they long for, that they cuddle with. And what do I think of it? I'm going to hold off my thoughts on what I actually think of it because mine is a little bit faulty. Mine's a little bit faulty. There is an underlying noise that is unacceptable on a microphone of this price point, and I am 99.9% sure that it's a faulty or broken unit. I have a support ticket submitted. We'll see what happens with that. I will include a sample of the snap crackling and popping right here so you can hear the issue that I have. Ignore the room noise and just listen to the actual artifacts created by the mic. So there you go. Definitely something wrong with this microphone. Hopefully they're able to fix it. Hopefully they get back to me soon. As far as the tone, it is extremely, extremely detailed and nuanced. It captures every aspect of my voice, every crinkle and crackle in my vocal cords. It captures that. It's truly amazing how detailed it actually is. Unfortunately, I have a voice that people don't want to listen to. My voice, people would be better off with less detail and less nuance from my voice because my voice is not pleasing. It is not one of those voices where you think, oh, if only I had a voice like that. So, although it is truly amazing what they do with this microphone, I simply don't think it's a good fit for my voice. But as far as the overall, I'm going to hold off for the full review once I get a repaired microphone, and then I will share that in a full video on podcastage.com. Let us jump to what you had to say. First comment comes from gamer.io, and they say, I have seen these many times, and I'm sure that other people are wanting to know, what are the property of podcastage stickers on your microphones for? Gamer.io, thank you very much for asking that question. If you do not watch my reviews on YouTube, on all of the microphones, now I have a little sticker that has a barcode and says property of podcastage. Why do I have these? When did I start doing it? And what's the purpose? I have too much gear, and when I need to pull a microphone out for a comparison or a demonstration like I'm going to do later in this video, I need to know where the hell the microphone is. I started to do this because I simply have too much gear to keep track of and remember where everything is. Within the last year, I needed to find a piece of gear to include it in a video, and I spent over an hour trying to find it. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I couldn't include it in the video. So I decided to buy some cataloging stickers, some inventory stickers, so I was able to catalog every piece of gear that I have, put it into a piece of software, label it with what microphone it is, where it's located, keep track of the serial numbers and everything, so now I have an inventory system for all of my gear. When I needed to find some microphones that I use a little bit later in this episode, all I did was open this software, type in the model number of that microphone, and I had it out and ready to go in 45 seconds. That is why I have all of these stickers. Yes, it's true, I don't need to put stickers on every single microphone, and I could just write down the model number, but it's fun to have a little scanning gun that I can scan all the microphones with. Let me have my fun. Leave me alone. Stop bullying me, gamer.io. That's why I have them, and it's just to keep track of everything. Great question, though. Next, we have a comment from Andrew Beach, and he says, OBS tutorial. Bandrew, thanks for the OBS tutorial. I just updated my Skype app to stream through OBS, and I noticed that Skype has an option to automatically adjust your gain/microphone loudness. Where should we set that when streaming Skype to OBS? All the way up is my intuition, then adjust in OBS. Andrew, thank you very much for the comment, and I believe you are correct. I will admit I have not used Skype in over a year. I don't know what their audio system is like. I don't think it's a very good audio codec. I listen to some shows that use Skype, not very good sounding. I'm a little bit confused about exactly what you're asking, though. Are you asking whether you should adjust your guest's volume in Skype, or are you asking if Skype should be allowed to adjust your microphone's volume, which affects the recording that you're doing in OBS as well? If you're asking about adjusting your guest's volume, I would say set it so your guest's volume is not clipping. In OBS, your volume should be set at 0 before you do anything, because Skype is like your gain for that guest's volume. You want to make sure that you are not decreasing the volume there and then cranking it up in OBS. Set it properly in Skype, and then you can adjust it in OBS to match your microphone as well. If you're asking if Skype should have control over your microphone's volume, no. Do not let Skype touch your microphone's volume. Set your own volume because Skype will inevitably screw it up. Skype is not an audio software, or at least, I guess they are. They're an audio and video software. But Skype is not designed with audio engineers in mind or with people who understand audio in mind. They have the software designed for people who don't understand how to set your microphone's gain. So they're going to do whatever the hell they want and probably screw it up so you're not getting the best sound. So if it is about your guest's volume and setting that, because it's coming out of Skype, I would treat Skype as the gain of your guest. But if you're asking if Skype should control your volume, no, absolutely not. Skype, stay away from my volume. Stay away from Andrew Beach's volume. Don't touch it. Next, we got a comment from SoundSpeeds. SoundSpeeds! And he said, by the way, I just did a watch together with SoundSpeeds on a movie he worked on. It is... I'll let him share what that is if he wants, but it is one of the most insane movies I have ever seen, and I loved every second of it. Alan, thank you for sharing that with me. Back to the comment. He says, so, relevance to the primary topic of the channel's content is key. Okay, then why not put your podcast on a channel about gear used for podcasting? People that go to Podcastage looking for a microphone are looking to produce something with it. How many times have you heard that people on Podcastage didn't even know that you did a podcast and subscribe when they find out? I know your reason. You made that clear when you launched this channel for your podcast, but wouldn't a podcast where you test gear you review be worthwhile on a channel about reviewing gear? In my review of the Rode NTG5, I used it for a podcast and referred back to it in my review as something you can listen to if interested in hearing how it would work in one. Alan, thank you very much for that comment, and you are exactly right. I did try running this show on the Podcastage channel for 1 month, and it didn't go over well. But I had the exact justification that you did. First, I am testing microphones that I will inevitably review on the Podcastage channel, so it was giving people a real-world scenario or allowing them to hear the microphone in a fully produced podcast. So it gives them context rather than just a clinical review. And secondly, people had no idea that I had a show, so I wanted to put it in a place that they are more likely to find it. And with those points in our heads, it seems to make perfect sense. Hey, you want to see a microphone and see how it performs? Here's a full 45-minute show showing you how it performs in a real-world scenario. In our heads, that makes sense. But what's in our heads doesn't matter. What really matters is what the audience wants and what the algorithm wants. If the audience wasn't watching the show when I was uploading it to that channel, that doesn't tell me that the show is bad. That just tells me that the audience on Podcastage does not want a 45-minute show of me talking about random stuff about tech and creator news. They don't care about that. What they want is straight and to the point audio gear reviews and tutorials. They don't want all the other nonsense. They don't want to hear me yell about conspiracy theories and stuff. Although they should, because it's fun. It's fun. They should want to. They're so wrong. They've betrayed me. And if the audience isn't watching it, if I'm uploading videos to that channel and the audience is not watching it, that tells the algorithm that the audience doesn't like what I'm producing, so it pushes my other videos less and less. So by putting it there, it harms my audience's respect for me because they think that I am shoving something down their throat. Here's something that you don't care about. And then the algorithm is saying, well, he's producing crap. He doesn't produce stuff that people watch, so let's not promote it to anybody new. As far as referencing back to the podcast, I have done that a few times. I think I have actually said I used it on the podcast and I will link it, but in other cases, I have linked it in a card on the video of the microphone that I've reviewed, but I should go back and add all of the playlists by microphone to the review of that microphone. For instance, I have a playlist on the Bandrew Says podcast channel for videos using the Manley reference Cardioid. That would be smart of me when I review the reference Cardioid to include a card to a playlist of all the shows using the reference cardioid. I think that all made sense. I may have gotten long-winded, but thank you very much, Alan. I appreciate you. Thanks for sharing that movie with me. That was a blast. Next, we got a comment from Andy Boy, and he says, should I be using the OBS settings to not clip if I am using a GOXLR with its own compressor and makeup gain settings? Andy, you would not necessarily have to use the exact same methodology that I showed last week because the GOXLR does have an analog limiter, I think. Maybe it's a digital limiter, but it has some kind of limiting on the actual preamp to keep you from clipping. You still do need to watch your levels, and it may be beneficial to put a limiter on your audio sources and set it to -1 dB or so. That way you know you will never get to 0 dB and clip and distort. But as far as clipping your microphone, the GOXLR handles all of that in the device because it does have that analog or digital limiter that keeps you from actually distorting. So that's really good. They have that built in. You're good there. You don't need to follow the set it so you're hitting -18 dB, limit, boosted 18 dB, all that stuff. So thank you very much. Great question. Should have addressed that in the past. There you go. Hope that helps. Next, we got a comment from Sir Lucky Dog. He says, how come you are clipping at -6 dB in your OBS tutorial? Oh, you lucky dog. You asked such a good question. This was so much fun to investigate and determine what was causing it. I spent way too long on it, and because of that, we're going to go to a previously produced video. It seems like this is becoming the norm. People ask me such amazing questions that I have to record something before I actually record the podcast. But here is that walkthrough and explanation, and it demonstrates my thought process in troubleshooting what is causing this. So let's go to that. Past Bandrew, let's go back to the future. I don't know what that means. What an excellent question. I will go ahead and demonstrate what is causing this issue, where we are clipping when we're hitting around -6 dB. Currently, I have my Neumann KMS 105 connected to the 18i20, gain cranked to 100%, so we are clipping. It sounds terrible, but that's the point. I also have OBS open and I am recording that audio, and then I have Logic Pro open and I am not recording that audio right now. What I really want to focus on with these two windows are the audio meters. So I will go ahead and say my favorite phrase from a movie. Oh my God! You can hear? I am clipping. It sounds terrible. When we look at the OBS meter, we are only hitting -6 decibels while we clip, but when we look at the Logic Pro meters, we're hitting 0 decibels when we are clipping. It took me a while to figure out what was causing this, but when we click on the gear icon for our microphone input on OBS and go to Advanced Audio Properties, I have my microphone input set to mono, meaning it is mixing down all the inputs for the Focusrite to a single mono output. Let me go ahead and say, oh my God again, and we will look at the meters. Oh my God! We are hitting -6 dB, we are clipping. Let me go ahead and unclick this mono button, and I will do that again. Oh my God! So yes, now when I unclick mono and just let the channels route how they naturally do, OBS does display 0 decibels when we clip. So when I downmix everything to a mono track, it seems to lose a little bit of that level. Now let me go ahead and record my audio in Logic Pro, which is just a mono track, and then I will go into OBS, have the mono mix down of the Focusrite 18i20, and see if there is any actual discrepancy of the audio. See if it actually affects the output level of the audio. Now I have the OBS and Logic Pro files dropped into a session. OBS is panned hard left, Logic Pro is panned hard right. I will play them and we will look at the meters to see if there is any difference in the level. Testing, testing, testing. I am recording the Neumann KMS 105 directly into Logic Pro on a mono track. It appears that the Logic Pro file, which was recorded as a mono track, is hitting negative 4.5 dB, while the OBS file, which was a downmix to a mono, is being recorded at negative 10.5 dB. So we are in fact losing 6 decibels of level when we downmix a source to a mono file in OBS. As far as the reasoning behind that, I believe that stems from something called pan law, where if you have the exact same sound source pan to the left and the exact same sound source pan to the right, you essentially have 2 of the same audio file, and that will increase the level by 6 dB. So when we use that mono mixdown button on OBS, we are mixing down one channel which has 0 dB of level, that's our microphone, and another that has negative infinity on it. So it is nullifying that possibility of pan law. It is actually decreasing our level by 6 dB. Or at least that's my understanding of it. I am no master at this. This is me just trying to decipher what could potentially be causing this. As far as a solution to this, I don't know of any absolutes, but perhaps instead of OBS downmixing a multi-track input to a mono source, they could allow you to change the microphone input from a stereo track down to mono, and they could also maybe allow you to select what input from your interface you want to route to that microphone input as opposed to the routing matrix that they have right now. Just a suggestion, not 100% sure if that would work. They would have to do the research because they have to develop it, but that's my take on it. I hope that helped answer your question. Thanks so much for it. Let's jump to my favorite part of the show, the Ask Bandrew segment. Alrighty, if you have any questions, you can send those in so I can answer them. Just head over to askbandrew.com. You can send in text, video, or audio questions. I prefer video and audio so I don't have to read because I am a moron who doesn't know how to read. Thank you. Let's jump to the first voice submission. Take it away.
That's where the expertise. Hi there, Bandrew. Well, I'm actually listening to you right now on your Ask Bandrew column. So there we go. And I'm coming to you on the Rode SmartLav Plus microphone, which I really think does an incredible job of capturing vocal qualities. My question is, I'm shortly to be endeavoring on a new career in voiceover work. I have a masterclass lined up and all that lot. But I've always loved the handheld microphone. In particular, I'm keen on the Rode M2. I see that you've done a fantastic interview on that, but wondered if you could just shed even more light on it. It looks like a beautiful piece of equipment, and I'm just overall stunned by it, even before I've got one myself. So just wondered if you could give me some tips and insights on using this for, well, largely for voiceover, voice acting, and even singing as well. Thank you very much in advance.
Okay, so my thoughts on the Rode M2. You know I don't like just waxing poetic about microphones. I like to wax poetic about microphones while talking into the microphones that I'm talking about. So let's do that right now. Let's go back to something I just recorded before recording this, talking into the Rode M2. Okay, so I wanted to record a very quick demonstration of a situation or a way that I could imagine you using the Rode M2 as. This is about 6 inches away from my mouth, pointed at the corner of it, and you probably wouldn't want to get right on top of it unless you're going for that voice of God, because then you really engage the proximity effect. And that may not be ideal for long listening periods. So if you're doing audiobooks or anything, maybe a distance of 6 inches, you still need to focus on having a well-treated room because audiobooks have their criteria their requirements in terms of sound quality, and if you're in a completely reverberant room, that may not work that well. But I also want to include a few tests of other handheld condensers. I'm going to switch over to the Shure Beta 87A, and then I will go to my favorite handheld condenser currently, the Neumann KMS 105, so you can hear the sound differences between all of them. But right now, this is the Rode M2. Now I am on the Beta 87A, and I did have to increase my gain a little bit. You can hear that this is much crispier. I don't know how else to describe it. It is a bit crunchy in the upper frequencies, not the most appealing, not the smoothest, not the easiest to listen to, but in a live situation that really, you're not going for the most pristine audio quality. You're just going for some added detail and making sure that the mic is capturing the sound so you're able to manipulate it a little bit more. But this is a slightly more expensive handheld condenser compared to the M2, and here is how it sounds at about 6 inches away. And the last microphone that I have here is the Neumann KMS 105. I think that this is a hybrid of the Rode M2 and the Beta 87A. The M2 is more mid-forward and smooth. The 87A is just incredibly detailed, almost to a fault. This has that detail in the top end. It has the smooth sound as well. And I just think that this is a beautiful sounding microphone. And I have had some people say that this is their favorite microphone on my voice and that I should go back to using this for the podcast. This is the Neumann KMS 105, $700 though. So it's not really a fair comparison between $200 microphones, but I wanted to include it so you could hear what the handheld condenser could sound like. But to reiterate, I think if you are doing an audiobook, eating the microphone and getting right on top of it may not be the best choice unless you are trying to provide that voice of God, because as you get right on top of it, you get that, it's nice and warm and full, and there's a voice of God. Also, you need to make sure that you handle the plosives, and for that, I would recommend getting a pop filter just to ensure that no stray gusts of air hit the diaphragm and ruin your recording, anything like that. You won't be handling it, so handling noise, not really going to come into play. And I think that's it. If you want actual voiceover tips, I would recommend going and checking out Booth Junkie, because he actually does voiceover for a living. I'm just a dope who does a podcast and reviews microphones and records some music occasionally. So that's my take on it. I hope that gives you some additional insight into my thoughts on the Rode M2. Just all around, the Rode M2 is a very nice handheld condenser microphone, especially when you put it up against something like the Beta 87A. So thank you so much for the voice submission. Best of luck to you. Look forward to hearing some voiceovers from you. Talk to you later. Thanks again. Bye. Next question thing.
Hi, it's a Soma Rooster here. I'd like to know what microphone you use on your show. Thank you.
Very, very interesting and very, very fun question. What microphone do I use on my show? It changes way too much for me to say with any certainty what I am using, because right now I am using the Manley reference Cardioid, yet I am going to be changing it next week. A very easy way to determine what I'm using on each episode, in the show notes or episode notes and the description of every episode, I put a link and a list of all the gear that I use for that episode. The microphone, the boom arm, the pop filter, the preamp, the interface, everything. So if you're ever curious what piece of gear I am using in an episode, check the description and episode notes. It's all listed there. But over the last year or so, here is a list of the microphones that I remember using. I've used the Shure SM7, the Shure SM7B, the Neumann U87AI, the Telefunken TF47 right now, the Manley reference Cardioid, the Austrian Audio OC818, and the AKG C414 XLS. I almost burped there. I apologize. That was very rude of me. But those are the microphones that I remember using over the last year or so. And the reason that it changes so much is because when I am buying these more expensive microphones to review, I understand that there is much more nuance to them rather than a $100 condenser. So I want to give myself significantly more time to understand the character of the microphones. Because I can tell you, if I pulled the Manley out and reviewed it day one, I probably would not have reviewed it favorably. But after using it for a month and a half, 2 months, I like it quite a bit more. So that is why I change the microphones so much. It's because I want to put these microphones, the more expensive ones, through their paces and really get to know them before sharing my opinion with them. Thank you very much for that question. Great question. We have one last voice submission, so go ahead and take it away.
Hey, Bandrew. I was just watching the latest episode of your podcast, and I was thinking a lot about what you and Jerry were saying about freedom of speech, and especially what Jerry was saying about old America. I think that maybe people are too quick sometimes to put old America on a pedestal, especially with things like freedom of speech, because just kind of as a quick example, in the 1950s in America, I don't think freedom of speech was really in that great of a condition. People who were into communism probably didn't feel like they had a lot of freedom of speech at the time. As far as, backlash from the community, I think that is in a kind of a bad place, especially with things like Twitter or platforms like Twitter, where, within minutes or hours, you could have potentially like hundreds or thousands of people just on you for an opinion that they don't agree with. But as far as freedom of speech goes and the ability to put those opinions out there, I think we're in a really good place. I was just wondering what you think about the state of freedom of speech and if it's better now or worse than it has been in the past. Thanks.
Oh boy, red alert, we're talking about free speech again. If you don't like politics, skip this part. Don't like politics, skip this. I hate politics, but I like free speech, so I am going to bite. I did discuss this topic very briefly with somebody in Discord, and I brought up exactly what you did, the McCarthy hearings. And what they came back with was the House Un-American Activities Committee, which seems like somewhat of a precursor to the McCarthy hearings. Let me read you a description of what the House Un-American Activities Committee is. The House Committee on Internal Security was an investigative committee of the United States House of Representatives. The HUAC was created in 1938 to investigate alleged disloyalty and subversive activities on the part of private citizens, public employees, and those organizations suspected of having fascist or communist ties. So I agree with you completely that when we look back at the history of the United States, we don't have a perfect record of upholding freedom of speech and allowing people to say whatever they want. In the early 1900s or the early to mid 1900s, it certainly seems like people were being prosecuted for saying that they like a certain type of political ideology and economic system. I just don't think that referring to old America as the bastion of free speech, the good old times, is really fair, because there was infringements then, and there may be infringements right now. As a whole, I do think the state of freedom of speech is healthy, as the government is not really limiting or imprisoning people for speech. However, the thing that is concerning is the government is getting involved in some sense in stating that people can't go protest. I understand why they are saying that, but that is an amendment. That is a right that people have to peaceably assemble. And by the government saying, no, you can't peaceably assemble, then we're getting into some murky territory, and I don't want to go any further into that because I don't want to go down the politics road. But as a whole, I think we're good, but there is some things going on. There are some things going on that are concerning to me. But I also want to talk very briefly about something that does concern me about modern culture. It's about the entire Twitter mob and cancel mentality. Although I do think that people who have huge followings need to treat their reach or their influence with responsibility, people make mistakes and we need to remember that. And I don't think people need to be socially crucified because they made a mistake. I think that is a dangerous road to go down, because if we set this precedent, if we set this standard that once you make a single mistake that is offensive, you are canceled forever. You will never be able to work again. You are the bane of everybody's existence. You are the gunk on the bottom of somebody's shoe. That is wrong. That is wrong. People make mistakes. People need to be able to be forgiven. They need a path to redemption. They need to be able to say, yeah, I'm sorry, or hey, I'm not sorry because I didn't intend it that way. You, in bad faith, framed what I said in the worst possible light. I think we need to understand that. It seems like right now, when somebody says something dumb, instead of saying, hey, that was kind of hurtful, that offended me, here is why. If you want to not say that, cool. If you continue to say it, I just won't associate with you or something. Instead of saying that, it seems like people are going down the road of, this was clearly intended to be as hurtful as possible, and we are now 100% certain that this person is a racist, bigot, sexist, homophobe. Cancel them! Cancel them! It seems that's the road we have gone down, and that is concerning. With freedom of speech, of course, you will have a bit of pushback if you say something that isn't well thought out or maybe is hurtful to some people. That's fair. That is that person exercising their free speech and saying, hey, what you said sucked. Here is why it sucked. That is perfectly fine. But if something was a mistake, if they misspoke, or if they made a bad joke that they didn't know was incredibly offensive to a group of people, instead of canceling them or trying to get them canceled, ruining their source of income, ruining their entire lives, instead of going down that road, maybe we need a little bit more understanding and a little bit more forgiveness, because not everybody has the exact same experiences. Not everybody knows what everybody else is going through. So if somebody says something offensive, instead of automatically jumping to the conclusion of, this person is the scum of the earth, they are racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, whatever, cancel them, tell them why. Why was that hurtful? Why was that offensive? Hey, maybe don't say that. Here's why. Understand a little bit more, because not everybody is the same. I think I got a bit redundant there, but I wanted to be clear in what I was saying. Thank you very much for that comment and that voice submission. I appreciate you so much. I have 3 announcements this week. First one being, I posted a few articles to podcastage.com about the FET-head. The first one was talking about where the FET-head should be in your signal chain, whether it should be near the microphone or near the interface. And the second one being, if the FET-head is actually useful, do you really need one? Is it going to improve your noise floor? I will link both of those in the episode notes. I'll give you a quick spoiler alert. Put the FET-head close to your microphone and it does, in some cases, improve the noise floor enough, but you have to decide if 4 or 5 dB is worth $150. And secondly, I am on a redesign kick. I redesigned BandrewScott.com. It is so much nicer. It doesn't look like it was designed in 1976. Big improvement there. And then I am going to be on the live stream for The Cure. I believe it is on May 29th with Heather Welch from Sunshine and Power Cuts. So go ahead, head over to livestreamforthecure.com. There is a schedule there. We will be live streaming and having a blast. So go hang out, help us raise money for cancer research, because fuck cancer. Cancer can suck my dick. Fuck you, cancer. Okay, I think that's going to wrap up for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I love you. You are amazing. You are a beautiful human being. I hope you have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I will talk at you next Sunday. If you have any questions, ask Bandrew.com. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.